This is a podcast from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Morning Run. It's 8:49, Tuesday, the 7th of October. And in about 15 minutes, we've got the FBM KLCI opening, as well as an outlook for Singapore banks. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the Sabah state elections, because the 16th Sabah State Assembly was officially dissolved yesterday, paving the way for the 17 state elections that must be held within 60 days.
The elections are a crucial test for incumbent Chief Minister and head of Gabungan Rakyat Sabah, also known as the GRS coalition, Datuk Seri Hajiji Noor. He's grappling with a fractured alliance amid public discontent over corruption allegations implicating the state government. A further twist is that five star lawmakers have said they remain aligned with GRS despite the party's withdrawal from the bloc, indicating that there are advantages in sticking with the ruling coalition.
At the same time, the state polls are also seen as a litmus test for Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, who has been working to gain support in the state, including through his daughter and President of PKR, Vice President of PKR, Noor Anwar. Anwar had also stated that the number of parliamentary seats would be increased for Sabah and Sarawak in a bid to gain favour with voters seeking greater autonomy for East Malaysia. So what will be the key developments to watch as Sabah gears for the state elections in the coming weeks?
For more analysis, we speak to Dr. James Chin, Professor in Asian Studies at the University of Tasmania. Good morning, James. Thanks for speaking to us. Now, Chief Minister Datuk Seri Hajiji Noor could have called for the early dissolution of the State Assembly at any point this year, but waited until it was near the deadline of 11 November. Was this a missed opportunity for GRS to control the timing of the election, or were there more strategic reasons for the election date to be prolonged?
Good morning. So yes, you're right. He could have called for election anytime. In fact, he wanted to call for election late last year. But what happened was that there was a huge corruption scandal. As you know, there's a businessman called Albert who released a series of videos that implicated almost the entire Sabah cabinet plus the Speaker of the Dun. And also this year, you had lots of flooding. So combined together, he really had no choice but to dissolve yesterday. Just a quick correction. The end of the Day 1 sitting is not November. It's actually this week. According to legal advice, it is the first sitting of the Day 1 Undangan Negeri. And the first sitting was a special sitting in October, where they sworn in all the new members of the Day 1 Undangan Negeri Sabah back in 2020.
So if we look now, the unity of GRS has been affected by the exit of STAR and SAPP from the coalition. So does GRS still have a position of strength as the incumbent following this fracture?
I think it's too early to second guess who has the trend. I always tell all my friends that you will only know the real terrain of Sabah election on nomination day, because that will tell you which coalition is running for how many seats, and members of the coalition, individual members who is running where, and that will give you a very good indication. But what is clear is that GRS has decided internally that they will contest for at least 2/3 of all the 73 seats in Sabah. So their calculation is that they will do a minimum of 2/3 of the seats and surrender about 20 seats to Pakatan Harapan, their partner.
James, this Sabah for Sabahan sentiment has been kind of gaining ground for quite some time now. Which parties or which coalitions stand to gain from this sentiment?
So the Sabah for Sabahan's sentiment, you're right, is getting stronger. In terms of who will benefit the most, I would say it will be Parti Warisan, GRS, STAR. These are the parties that's often being associated with this slogan. The losers will be so-called Malayan parties, UMNO Sabah, Sabah-based party, which are branches of Malayan-based party like the DAP, PKR. These were the losers. But having said that, sentiment doesn't really play a very big role in urban areas. They're more of a rural thing. The biggest factor in Sabah politics is not sentiment, it is not politics or policy, it's personalities and money. These are the two biggest factors in Sabah politics. So if you have a brand name and you got lots of money, then you stand a very good chance.
Who stands to hold the cards here? Are rural voters or urban voters? Which type of voters tend to swing a particular way?
I think the voters this time, the big question mark is really over the KDM or Kadazan Dusun Muruk voters. There's still a lot of question mark about which way they'll swing. I think it's quite clear in the urban areas, the Chinese are still holding on to Pakatan Harapan stroke DAP. Most of the Muslim voters, as far as I understand, are sort of split between Warisan and UMNO. GRS will probably get some of the seats, Muslim seats, plus their main target will be the KDM seats in the rural areas.
James, I just want to confirm something about the federal alliances, right? Namely Pakatan Harapan and Barisan Nasional. Do you see them actually making headway in Sabah? And what's your prognosis on this?
Like I said, it's a bit too early because we don't even know how many seats UMNO Sabah is going to stand. But what I can tell you is that at the present moment, the way to understand Sabah politics is that there are basically 4 blocks. The first block obviously is a STAR stroke SAPP and the so-called independent block. The second block is the GRS, the governing coalition. The third block is, of course, Parti Warisan, which has been getting ground in the last few weeks. And the last block is UMNO Sabah. The interesting thing is that Anwar Ibrahim doesn't have to worry about anything. He talks as if he's worried, but actually he doesn't care because all these are members of the federal government. So it doesn't matter who wins in Sabah, he's already won.
Okay, so what do you think are the issues influencing voters' sentiment that you see during the state election campaign?
So the issues will basically be the Sabah for Sabahan sentiment, whether GRS has protected Sabah interests. But I think a lot of it will come down to personality and local retail politics. As I mentioned earlier, personality and money is really important. How much money is going to the ground? I think this election will be interesting in that there will be lots of money going to the ground. All the people in Sabah are telling me that, the minimum amount of money that's going to the ground, I'm talking about actual money, cash handout, so on and so forth, will be excess of more than 200 million ringgit. You will also see a lot of candidates. I predict there will be more than 200 candidates altogether. And in some of the more contestable seats, you might have up to 7 candidates chasing for one single seat. But one of the things that's not being widely reported, well, in fact, it's not being widely reported at all, is the fact that this is probably a unique election in that we probably will see that this is the last chance for Jeffrey Kitingan to lead the so-called KDMR unity. Because of his age, it's very unlikely if he doesn't do well this time, he'll come back the next round. It's probably also the end of the Kitingan brand in Sabah politics, because as far as I know, outside of Jeffrey and his brother Piring, we don't see any of the younger Kitingans coming up in this election. So it is sort of the end of the era for the Kitingan brothers and also for Jeffrey personally.
So, James, you said PM Anwar Ibrahim doesn't have anything to worry about, but I'm just curious what the outcome of these state polls have on federal political dynamics. I mean, we've also got Malacca, Johor and Sarawak before GE16 happens. What can we expect?
Look, everybody understands that the political dynamics in Sabah and Sarawak are very different from Peninsular Malaysia. I think most people on the Peninsula side has already discounted Sarawak. Everybody thinks that the GPS in Sarawak is unbeatable. It's interesting that for very first time in a very, very long time, as far as I can remember, GPS is actually an issue in Sabah. So a lot of politicians are running on a campaign that we really need a strong Sabah for Sabahan vote because we're trying to replicate the GPS model in Sabah. So it's interesting that Sarawak GPS is actually one of the side issues in Sabah election. Look, the only thing I can tell you is that don't get too excited. Look at who is going to get nominated or nomination there. And also I suspect because of the ASEAN summit, Electoral Commission will have to push the vote, the actual vote polling day to sometime in November. So there's still plenty of time to set up your betting ring, but don't get too excited now.
All right, thank you so much for your time. That was Dr. James Chin, Professor in Asian Studies at the University of Tasmania, explaining to us the very complicated dynamics within Sabah politics. And like you said, don't get excited. It's early days yet. The Election Commission has 60 days to come up with a polling date within the dissolution date. So a long time on. Like you said, ASEAN Summit, so maybe likely sometime in November. And then let's just see who the candidates are, as many as 7 for each constituency. Is not unexpected. So stay tuned for that. BFM 89.9.
You have been listening to a podcast from BFM 89.9, the business station. For more stories of the same kind, download the BFM app.